Welcome to the Recruitment Hackers Podcast, a show about innovations, technology, and leaders in the recruitment industry. Brought to you by TalkPush, the leading recruitment automation platform.
Hello, welcome back to the Recruitment Hackers Podcast. I'm your host, Max Armbruster, and today I'm delighted to welcome on the show Julia DeBari, who is a designer turned into a recruiter of designers. And we'll get to her story in a minute. And I hope to ask Julia about how to hire designers and how to hire them in a way which opens your talent pool and opens the door to as many qualified talent as possible. So Julia, well, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Max. I appreciate you having me.
It's a pleasure. We got connected because I saw some of Julia's work online where she explained some of her UX and design work. And Julia, like many recruiters, kind of stumbled into recruitment and talent acquisition, I suppose, a bit late in your career. So you've only been a full-time recruiter for less than a year, right?
5 months.
5 months. So, well, that's the hardest part, probably. So I hope you're hanging in there. But yeah, how did you end up? Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then perhaps how you ended up in talent acquisition.
Sure. Yeah. So as Max said, I've been in UX design actually 22 years, primarily in the San Francisco, Silicon Valley area. Most of my life. I recently moved up to the Pacific Northwest, and I had the normal career, you go up the career ladder, and then I decided that wasn't for me. And so I switched to teaching UX design for 5 years. And then I got a little burnt out and switched to design program management for a year and felt like I just wasn't having the same impact I was able to in the past. So yes, I decided to try recruiting to see how the sausage is made, so to speak. As I was doing education, I saw so many students struggling to find that first job after graduating. And I just really wanted to understand the hiring process in more detail. So I took the plunge and jumped right in and been doing it for 5 months.
All right. And are you able to help those young people today find jobs? Or is it like every other field? Nobody wants to hire them straight out of school. We want them to have like 3-4 years to basically to have all their training, their initial training paid for by someone else.
Yes, no, it's just like that. In my recruiting role, I got one junior graphic design position, and I've gotten 500 applicants in 24 hours that I get to go through. So yeah, it's really tough. Just like many other industries, design mostly wants senior people. It's frustrating. And many people out of school do a lot of contract or freelance work for a few years before a company is willing to take a chance on them.
Yeah, it's a great way to at least get something started, build a portfolio. You go on Upwork, you take the odd gig, and it then adds up, right? I mean, yeah. People put Upwork on their resume all the time now.
Yeah.
And good enough for me, actually. As an employer who works with a remote distributed team, I'd be happy if somebody spends 5 years on Upwork as long as they've got good credentials.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of your only option, the way the process is right now.
Well, Julia, thinking about these young people who don't have a long portfolio and these 500 candidates, did you come up with a process that works and that you could recommend for others who are hiring designers?
I don't think I've quite finalized the process. I think I've made some improvements, but the thing is, those improvements are mostly just me. I'm still trying to scale those improvements out to other people. And I think one thing, so when I was in UX design, I was a manager and hiring, and I was much more open to mentoring whoever the new person on the team was. And I noticed a lot of hiring managers are just too busy and don't have the time, which is why they're looking for seniors. So I think what's positive in the industry is there are a lot of design apprenticeship programs popping up where people can join and get the ongoing mentorship while working if they can get someone to take a chance on them. And I think that's really important to be like, I have a regular steady mentor who I talk with and reviews my work. And I think that helps when you can bring that to the table when you're interviewing.
That does sound, oh, you mean the candidate would, oh no, you mean the recruiter or the candidate should?
So it's something I
candidate
advocate for when I get junior candidates, is to tell them step by step how to get a regular mentor and how
get
to
a mentor
that.
and bring that to the discussion, bring that to the interview.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, brilliant. I could use a mentor for my designers. That's not a dig. It's just to say, we're a small business and we don't necessarily have the layer of senior mentorship available in-house. And
I'm happy to take that conversation offline and give you some free consulting advice.
Thank you. I will take you up on that. And so thinking about the mistakes we want to avoid when hiring designers, what are some, you must have hired a few in your days when you were on the other side, when you were managing design. Can you, kind of walk me back through some of the hiring mistakes that you may have made and what you learned from that and how employers can avoid hiring the wrong designer?
Yeah. One mistake I made, it was not official. So anyway, I was the manager and I inherited a team, and then we wanted to bring some new people on, and I went on vacation and the hiring process started without me. And when I got back from vacation, I had two new people on my team that I did not interview. So I definitely do not recommend doing that. And I think I strongly suggest when you are having a designer that they meet at least a couple people on the team, not just the hiring manager and their boss or the cross-functional partners, but they need to talk to some people that they're going to work with on a day-to-day basis. What I used to do back when it was in person, obviously things are a lot different with remote, that I think is helpful is showing them the creative area or where they will be doing their work. So if you do have people in person, it's a lot different. Some places still have the whole cubicle setup, or, is it a total office setup or bullpen setup or whatever. So that was useful, but I don't think it matters now with remote work. But letting people know the cadence of meetings. I think that's one thing, depending on the company. Some companies are really meeting heavy and some people really don't like that. And so those are some important things as a hiring manager. You can let candidates know so they're not surprised when they accept the offer and start.
Yeah, that's tricky, right? To be able to figure out if somebody is meeting friendly or not meeting friendly. I know, I have my ideas on who likes meetings and who doesn't in my company. I would say most of the engineers are pushing back heavily on it. And I suppose generally, if you could map out who's an introvert versus an extrovert, then you can figure out how much they enjoy meetings. But that could be simplifying things. Yeah. How do you determine that with your candidate?
Yeah, I usually just ask and say, we usually have, depending on what client I'm hiring for, there's usually X number of meetings a day. Another thing I think is important is are those meetings planned and they're on your calendar a week or two in advance, or is it fire, emergency? Okay, we throw an hour-long meeting on the calendar in 5 minutes so that we can rush to do a crisis. I've certainly worked at places where they just proliferated like mushrooms, but nothing was hardly ever planned out as far as meetings. So that was a little bit of a pain. So sometimes just asking those questions straight up.
Like what does your average week look like? How could it be better? And and maybe some designers will say, oh, I wish I had more meeting. I wish I had more interaction. I was more involved with other sides of the business and possibly get that kind of candidate too.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a culture fit question. And then in terms of technical assessment, what do you do?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. There's quite a debate in the industry around, say, technical assessments in the sense, and I'm sure it's not just design, where there are so many tools and it's a job description will list, you must know these 5 tools or something. Mm-hmm. But honestly, almost every job I've had, there's been a new tool or something. So I would say for hiring manager, I would look more for someone who can pick up a new program really quickly and not use that as criteria to cross someone off the list. I've used so many different softwares and oh my God, I said softwares. I can't believe I said that. So many different software programs. And, it usually just takes me like a few hours or a day or so to pick them up. And so I think a lot of people are like that. And so I see hiring managers like, oh, they must know this program, or like we work only in like, I just got a design, like a UX design job, and I only work in Illustrator. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, most
It's a form of
industries use big
snobism. And it's like,
yeah.
if you don't know my software, then what kind of person are you? It's that sort of tribal instinct that kicks in where we think, oh, you're an Outlook person? Gross,
Yeah, exactly. So I see things like that getting in the way of hiring great candidates a lot.
Yeah. So, okay, try to shake off all your, so we have all these biases, right? So
Yes.
we imagine a candidate to be a certain physical type, gender, age group, etc., and software package to come with it. Well, if it's not an Adobe InDesign person, I don't want to touch it. So we got to get rid of those biases, and then we got to get to the core. So the core of a great designer, I don't know, how do you measure that? Like, is it artistic sensibility? You see their portfolio and you ask them to walk them through the artistic, the creative process?
Well, you caught on a keyword there, process. So the great thing about UX design specifically is that it's using an old-fashioned term. It's both right-brained and left-brained. So you want someone who can think critically and ask a lot of questions and not just take things for granted or take things at face value. But then you also, as you said, you want someone with that aesthetic sense and that creative ability. So yeah, so I really feel like your portfolio is really where you can stand out as a candidate. And as a hiring manager, that should be your like single point of reference versus someone's like resume or like where they went to school or whatever. And in that portfolio, you want to see, attention to detail in the design artifacts that are on the portfolio, as well as an explanation of like how they went through that project's process, of like, so things I look, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say the portfolio is a little bit like a resume. You can put a lot of stuff in there. It doesn't always have to be true, right?
That's a good question. I never thought about that, but I've heard many stories.
A lot of people cheat on their resume a little bit or bend the truth a little bit. And I imagine they do the same on portfolios. And, I would look at a portfolio and say, well, did you really design that?
Yeah, no, actually, you totally reminded me. I think it was last year or the year before, I was talking to a friend and they'd hired someone based on this person's portfolio. Like she wasn't the hiring manager, but this person was going to be her coworker. And it turns out they totally copied someone else's portfolio, like ripped it off like letter to letter. So that is one reason why we see so many design challenges. Like, unfortunately, it's awful to do it as a candidate, but I've done a lot of interviewing with other hiring managers, and the amount of responses where people are scarred by hiring the wrong person is like fear. Like they're afraid of hiring the wrong person. And just to your point, like person has a great portfolio, but did they really do the work? How can I test for that? It's not like programming where you write test cases or something like that, or your code works or it doesn't work.
I was going to ask you, design challenges and tests. I'm sure people have come up with those 100 different ways by now. Is there one exercise that you think works for you or for hiring somebody, let's say, 1 or 2 years out of school?
Yeah, I actually really like it's totally free online. It's been up for years. Like you can totally just go use it. Google's Innovation Lab, is that what it's called? It's the guy who wrote that book, Sprint, Jake Knapp, whatever. I don't remember if it's called Google GV Labs, Google Venture Labs. That's what it is. He put a great design challenge up online. You can download it, use it. I think it's almost perfect. Like it, does what you need it to do.
The design sprints is a 5-day process for answering critical business questions through design, prototyping, and testing ideas with customers.
Yep.
That one? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Something to check out. So that's something you can dictate the outcome a little bit, or it's an open challenge?
It's an open challenge. Yeah. And it's just the challenges online. Like you don't need to buy the book or anything.
And it looks like it's time bound.
Yep.
Yeah, because that's the other thing with portfolios is maybe you have a beautiful piece of work, but it took you 3 years to do that one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
Okay. And any other advice on how to find, how to give young designers a chance and how to avoid mistakes on hiring UX designers?
Well, I could go on and on about giving junior UXers a chance, but I guess just more on the hiring a little bit, like really looking into like diversity and inclusion. There are lots of great places, like don't just use LinkedIn or Indeed to find candidates. Especially like junior candidates, they might not, totally be aware of these platforms or at least LinkedIn. So you can go to like Behance or Dribble, which are like sort of portfolio websites. And, there's also, I don't know if clubs is the right word, but there's like Blacks who design and Latinos who design and a whole bunch of like specific groups around that kind of thing that are a good place to find people. So I definitely recommend reaching out to those groups. And then one thing I do, and it's worked for me both as a candidate and a hiring manager, is using things like Slack groups or design communities instead of just using like a job board to like go find people and just reach out to them on these like Slack communities or whatever, Discord, TikTok, there's design communities and reaching out to people.
And it sounds like at the junior end of the talent pool, then there's too much talent. There's an oversupply. And what's the other side of that equation? What are the type of profiles that are in such high demand that nobody can find them?
Yeah, so it's usually senior or lead, like UX designer. I have tons of friends with those titles, and yeah, they're getting.
They don't have to sweat for work.
No, they really do not. They can pretty much just walk up and get almost whatever they want.
It's still a good career choice for people who want to move into it.
Yeah, definitely.
Good career prospects.
One thing I would say, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would say to companies, it is a hiring frenzy out there, and being a recruiter with like some jobs are like, yeah, we want to hire right away. And yet you still take like weeks to like give feedback or schedule interviews, where I have other candidates like the client went through in just a couple of days and they got an offer at the end of the week. So you really need to move fast right now. Like you can't take weeks or months to decide on a candidate.
That is music to my ear. I think for most jobs, it should be like that, actually. But we all fall asleep at the wheel sometimes, unfortunately. And you're now in recruitment and interviewing designers. Do you think that having been a UX designer, a lead designer for a long time, decades, you said, do you think that gives you an edge as a recruiter? And the follow-on question to that is, if somebody is a recruiter for designers, should they, what kind of education do they need to access in order to speak the right language? I mean, I don't know if it's giving you an edge or not, or if you feel like you're more catching up to the recruiters on how recruitment is done. I've seen a lot of people come into recruitment and kind of get the hang of it quickly and use their past experience as a way to build trust with candidates.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely helped me build trust and like quick rapport really quickly. Like I was screening someone earlier and they're like, oh, you're a fellow, like part of the creative community. And they're like really happy to talk to me. And so it's definitely actually been a positive thing. And to your point, I feel like picking up the general process of recruiting was very quick. There's some little nuances that I think just might be like company specific that I'm still trying to understand. Yeah, but I think it's good.
And taking a fresh look at things. I mean, the recruitment process is changing very fast. It's different now than it was 2 years ago, pre-pandemic. And so people are still catching up all the time. So I think, bringing in people external from talent acquisition is generally a positive. I've seen a lot of companies succeed well bringing somebody from outside.
Yeah, I agree.
And hopefully you'll stick around in talent acquisition and help a lot of people and make a lot of money or whatever you're in it for. It was a pleasure to meet you, Julia, and to get a little bit into this unique world of hiring UX designers. How can people get a hold of you? And what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Definitely LinkedIn. I just saw LinkedIn is called a social media network, which I was unaware of. But I'm stuck to LinkedIn the way other people are to like Instagram or Twitter or TikTok.
I wanted to ask you, actually, are most UX designers, do they have a preferred social media?
Actually, Twitter seems to be more popular.
Oh,
I'm a little
that's ironic. It's a text-based social media that wins the people doing design.
Yeah, there are people on, I mean, there's definitely a good group of people on LinkedIn, but I find a lot of people on Twitter too.
Okay, good. And dare I ask, Instagram, TikTok?
Not as well. Yeah, I haven't seen on TikTok, or not TikTok, Instagram, very many like people searching for jobs. And like, I thought like, oh, that'd be a good way to like maybe also branch out your portfolio to like show pieces and stuff like, you know, in your bio or something, but I haven't really seen it that much, which actually surprised me. And then I have seen some people do some interesting things on TikTok, but it's definitely the more junior people, you know.
18 to 25-year-old.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Thanks, Julia. And all the best with your career in recruitment.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great day.
That was Julia DeBari reminding us that when you're interviewing a designer, it's the same thing as for any profession. You don't just look at the output, but you ask them how they got there, the process that they used in order to achieve their results. That's how you interview an engineer, a designer, or just about anybody on the planet. Hope there were some insights in there for you, and that you'll be back for more at the Recruitment Hackers podcast. Thanks for subscribing.